Imagine a freezing winter night in a quiet university town. A young woman, full of dreams, stumbles through the snow, her breath clouding in the icy air. She's alone, vulnerable, and unaware that someone is watching from the shadows. In just a few hours, her life will be stolen, and a community will be left in pieces. This is the story of Libby Squire, a tale of loss, courage, and a mother's fight to ensure no one else suffers the same fate. Liberty. Anna Squire, Libby, to everyone who knew her, was 21 years old, a philosophy student at the University of Hull in England. She had a spark that drew people in. Her friends described her as vibrant, with a laugh that could light up the gloomiest room and a mind always wrestling with life's big questions. But beneath her warmth, Libby carried a quiet burden. She struggled with depression and anxiety, moments when the world felt too heavy. Yet she pushed forward, chasing her dreams in a new city, surrounded by friends who became her second family. It was January 31st, 2019, in Kingston upon Hull, a gritty town in East Yorkshire. Snow dusted the streets and the air was sharp with cold. Libby and her friends were ready for a break from their studies. They planned a night out at the Welly, a lively nightclub on Beverly Road, is just a short walk from their student houses. In their cramped flat, they laughed as they got ready, music blaring. Libby slipped on her favorite jacket, too thin for the freezing night, but she didn't mind. For a moment, her worries melted away in the warmth of friendship. At the Welly, the music pulsed, and Libby danced with abandon, her smile wide. But as the night wore on, she drank more than she planned. Her steps grew unsteady, her words slurred. Around 11:20 p.m., the bouncer stopped her at the club's main entrance. "Sorry, love," he said, shaking his head. "You've had too much." Her friends argued, but Libby, embarrassed but stubborn, waved them off. "I'm fine," she said. "I'll just head home." Her friends, worried but trusting her, called a taxi. It dropped her off at her shared house on Wellesley Avenue around 11:30 p.m. The street was silent, snow crunching under her feet. Libby fumbled with her keys, her fingers numb from the cold. In her haze, she dropped them in a neighbor's garden and didn't notice. Instead of going inside, she turned and wandered back toward Beverly Road, shivering in the bitter night. She was alone now, vulnerable, her breath visible in the freezing air. As Libby stumbled through the snow, a silver Vauxhall Astra crept along Beverly Road, its driver hidden in the dark. His name was Pawel Relowicz, a 24-year-old butcher, married with 2 young children. To those who knew him, he seemed unremarkable, a quiet man who kept to himself. But Relowicz had a secret life, one that had grown more sinister with each passing month. Since 2017, he'd been stalking Hull's student area, a predator blending into the everyday. He spied on young women, stole intimate items from their homes, and committed acts that sent chills through the community. On this night, his obsession would turn deadly. Libby, lost in her thoughts and the fog of alcohol, didn't notice the car trailing her. Witnesses later saw her on Beverly Road around 11:40 p.m., crying and incoherent. A passerby tried to help, asking if she was okay. "Leave me alone," Libby snapped, her voice thick with distress. She was likely hypothermic, her body and mind struggling against the cold and intoxication. The passerby hesitated, then walked away, assuming she'd find her way home. That moment would haunt them forever. Relowicz saw his opportunity. To him, Libby wasn't a person with dreams or a family who loved her. She was a target, a young woman alone in the dark. He eased his car closer, his headlights dimming. What happened next is a moment we can only piece together from fragments of evidence, but it's the moment that changed everything. The next morning, February 1st, 2019, Libby's housemates woke to find her bed empty, her phone silent. Panic set in. They called her friends, then the police. Humberside police launched their largest missing person search ever. Over 100 officers spread across Hull, knocking on doors, checking bins and drains, and searching the icy banks of the Beverly and Barmston Drain, the River Hull, dark and swollen, loomed as a grim possibility. Libby's mother, Libby Squire, got the call that shattered her world. A nurse from Buckinghamshire, Lisa was a pillar of strength, but nothing could prepare her for this. She drove to Hull, clutching a photo of Libby, her bright smile frozen in time. She's out there, Lisa told herself, refusing to lose hope. She joined the search, walking the snowy streets, calling her daughter's name. Detective Inspector Kate Morgan led the investigation. A seasoned officer with a reputation for never giving up, Kate had seen too many cases like this end in tragedy. She studied CCTV footage, her eyes locking on a grainy image of a silver Vauxhall Astra circling Beverly Road. The car belonged to Pawel Relowicz, a name that hadn't yet raised alarms but soon would. "Get me everything on this guy," Kate told her team, her instincts screaming that this wasn't a random disappearance. On February 6th, police arrested Relowicz on suspicion of abduction. A search of his home revealed a chilling collection: stolen underwear, sex toys, and photos taken from student houses. 4 days later, he was charged with unrelated crimes: voyeurism, outraging public decency, and burglary, all committed in Hull's student area since 2017. He pleaded guilty, but Libby's case remained open. The search pressed on, and Lisa's hope began to fray. Weeks passed with no sign of Libby. Hull's community rallied, holding vigils and plastering the town with posters of her face. Lisa barely slept, her days consumed by the search, her nights haunted by questions. Had Libby wandered into the river? Had someone taken her? She clung to memories of her daughter, her love of music, her quirky humor, the way she'd debate philosophy for hours. But a memory gnawed at Lisa, one that made her heart race. Weeks before Libby vanished, she'd told her mother about a disturbing incident. A man had exposed himself to her near campus, leaving her shaken and angry. Libby brushed it off, not wanting to make a fuss, but now Lisa wondered if that man was connected to her disappearance. She shared the story with Kate, who filed it away, her suspicion of Relowicz deepening. On March 20th, 2019, fishermen in the Humber estuary, miles from Hull, found a woman's body in the cold, gray waves. The next day, dental records confirmed it was Libby. Lisa's world collapsed. She sat in her car outside the police station, sobbing, clutching the photo she'd carried for weeks. Her daughter was gone, and the truth of what happened was still out there. The autopsy offered little clarity. Libby's body was too decomposed to pinpoint the cause of death, but there were signs of blunt trauma to her lip, possibly from a struggle. More damning was the forensic evidence: sperm cells on her body, with a 1 in a billion DNA match to Pawel Relowicz. Kate Morgan's team now had a suspect, and a monster to bring down. Pawel Relowicz wasn't the ordinary man he seemed. His criminal history revealed a predator whose desires had spiraled out of control. From 2017 to 2019, he'd terrorized Hull's student community, peering into windows, stealing intimate items, and committing brazen acts of indecency. He'd grown bolder, unafraid of being caught. Neighbors had seen him lurking at night, but no one connected the dots until it was too late. CCTV footage placed Relowicz's car near Libby on Beverly Road, then at Oak Road playing fields, a secluded spot by the River Hull. Residents nearby reported hearing a woman's screams that night, high-pitched and desperate. Scratches on Relowicz's face, documented days later, suggested Libby fought back with all her strength. Kate Morgan pieced it together. Relowicz had seen Libby, alone and vulnerable, and seized his moment. He'd either coerced or forced her into his car, driven her to Oak Road, and there, in the darkness, he'd raped and murdered her before dumping her body in the river. Relowicz's actions after the crime were chilling. Hours later, he returned home, watched pornography, and went out again, possibly hunting another victim. His arrogance was staggering. He showed no remorse, no fear, even as police closed in. On October 24, 2019, while serving a 5-year sentence for his earlier crimes, Relowicz was charged with Libby's rape and murder. His trial began on January 12, 2021, at Sheffield Crown Court. The prosecution, led by Richard Wright, laid out a damning case. They painted Relowicz as a predator whose crimes had escalated over years, culminating in the brutal attack on Libby. The DNA evidence, CCTV footage, and witness testimonies were undeniable. Relowicz took the stand, spinning a story that shocked the courtroom. He claimed he'd acted as a good Samaritan, offering Libby a ride home. He said she initiated consensual sex at Oak Road, then scratched his face when he left her there, alive but upset. His story fell apart under scrutiny. He'd given 5 conflicting accounts to police, friends, and colleagues, each more absurd than the last. The jury saw through his lies. After 6 days of deliberation on February 11, 2021, Relowicz was found guilty of rape and murder. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read, Libby Squire's tears falling quietly. The next day, Mrs. Justice Lambert sentenced him to life in prison with a minimum term of 27 years. She called his actions a perverted campaign of sexually deviant behavior, branding him a danger to society. For Lisa, it was justice, but it could never bring Libby back. Libby Squire's grief could have broken her, but she turned it into a force for change. She realized Libby's death wasn't just a random tragedy. It was the result of a system that had failed to stop a predator. Relowicz's earlier crimes, like indecent exposure and voyeurism, were warning signs, but they'd been treated as minor. Lisa knew that if someone had reported the man who flashed Libby weeks earlier, her daughter might still be alive. Lisa launched the Libby Campaign, working with Humberside police and others to educate thousands of young people about reporting non-contact sexual offenses. She called them red flags, signs of a predator's escalating behavior. She spoke at schools, sharing her story, urging students to speak out. "It does matter," she said. "Your voice can save lives." In 2022, Lisa tried to meet Relowicz through a restorative justice program, hoping to learn more about Libby's final moments. He agreed at first, then backed out, leaving her with unanswered questions. But Lisa pressed on. She took her fight to Parliament, where MP Dame Diana Johnson championed her cause. Even the Home Secretary agreed to meet her, promising to review how indecent exposure cases are handled. Libby Squire's life was cut short, but her story endures. In Hull, her friends and community hold vigils, lighting candles in her memory. The University Feminist Society honors her with events raising awareness about safety and justice. Lisa's advocacy has reached over 17,000 young people. Her message clear: no one should suffer in silence, and no crime is too small to report. Libby was more than a victim. She was a daughter, a friend, a dreamer who loved music and philosophy and saw beauty in the world despite her struggles. Her mother's fight ensures that her light continues to shine, a beacon for change in a world that too often looks away. On that freezing night in Hull, Libby Squire walked alone, unaware of the darkness closing in. Her life was stolen, but her legacy lives on through her mother's courage and a community's resolve. This is the story of Libby Squire, a story that reminds us to hold our loved ones close, to listen when someone cries for help, and to never let the light of justice fade. If Libby's story moved you, please hit that subscribe button to join our community and hear more stories that matter. Like this video to honor Libby's memory and share it to spread her mother's message. Reporting even the smallest crimes can save lives. In the comments, tell us, what do you think could have stopped this tragedy? Was it a missed warning sign, a moment of hesitation, or something else? Drop your thoughts below, and let's start a conversation about keeping our communities safe. Don't just watch. Join the fight for justice.